Sugar is one of the most widely used foods in the world. People add sugar to tea, coffee, cakes, sweets, soft drinks, and many other foods. Today, sugar is easy to find and relatively inexpensive. However, in ancient times, sugar was rare, expensive, and sometimes considered a luxury or medicine. The history of sugar is a long story involving agriculture, trade, exploration, slavery, colonialism, industry, and global economic development. The early origins of sugar. The history of sugar began thousands of years ago with sugarcane. Historians generally believe that sugarcane originated in New Guinea and parts of Southeast Asia. Ancient people did not originally produce white sugar. Instead, they chewed the stalks of sugarcane to enjoy the sweet juice inside. Over time, sugarcane cultivation spread from Southeast Asia to India and other parts of Asia through migration and trade. The word sugar has a long linguistic history. It is connected to the Sanskrit word sharkara, which referred to sugar or small grains. The word later passed through Persian and Arabic languages before entering European languages. Sugar in ancient India played an extremely important role in the development of sugar production. By ancient times, Indian people had developed methods of extracting juice from sugarcane. They boiled the juice and processed it into solid forms of sugar. One of the greatest developments was the production of crystallized sugar. This made sugar easier to store and transport than fresh sugarcane juice. Indian knowledge of sugar production gradually spread to other regions. Sugar was also used in traditional medicine and food. When foreign travelers and armies reached India, they were fascinated by sugarcane. Ancient writers described it as a plant that produced sweetness without the use of honey. Sugar spreads to Persia, and the Islamic world sugar production later spread from India to Persia. Persian farmers and producers improved techniques for cultivating sugarcane and refining sugar. After the expansion of Islamic civilizations from the 7th century onward, sugar production spread across a much larger geographical area. Sugarcane was cultivated in regions of the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of the Mediterranean. Arab farmers and engineers developed sophisticated agricultural systems. Irrigation technology was especially important because sugarcane requires significant amounts of water and warm weather. Sugar became an important product in Islamic markets. It was used in sweets, drinks, medicine, and food preparation. Through trade and cultural contact, Europeans gradually learned more about sugar. Sugar in medieval Europe. During the Middle Ages, sugar was extremely expensive in Europe. Most ordinary European people used honey as their main sweetener. Sugar was imported from distant regions and was difficult to produce. Because of its high price, sugar was mainly consumed by kings, nobles, wealthy merchants, and other rich families. In some European societies, sugar was considered a spice rather than an ordinary food. It was also used by physicians and pharmacists in medicines. The Crusades and Mediterranean trade increased European contact with regions where sugar was produced. European merchants became increasingly interested in the sugar trade. Cities such as Venice became important centers for importing and trading sugar. European exploration and sugar plantations. From the 15th century, European powers began exploring the Atlantic Ocean and establishing overseas colonies. The Portuguese and Spanish recognized the economic value of sugar. Sugarcane cultivation was introduced to Atlantic islands, such as Madeira and the Canary Islands. Large agricultural estates, known as plantations, were created to grow sugarcane. Producing sugar was difficult and labor-intensive. Workers had to plant and harvest the sugarcane, crush the stalks, boil the juice, and process the sugar. The plantation model developed on Atlantic islands and was later transferred to the Americas. Sugar arrives in the Americas. After European voyages to the Americas, sugarcane became one of the most important colonial crops. Christopher Columbus carried sugarcane to the Caribbean during his second voyage in 1493. The warm climate and fertile land of the Caribbean and parts of South America were suitable for growing sugarcane. European colonial powers established enormous sugar plantations in places such as Brazil, Barbados, Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, then known as Saint-Domingue, other Caribbean islands. Brazil became one of the earliest major sugar-producing regions in the Americas under Portuguese colonial rule. Later, Caribbean colonies became extremely important centers of global sugar production. Sugar and the transatlantic slave trade, one of the darkest parts of sugar history, is its close connection with slavery. Sugar plantations required enormous amounts of labor. European colonial plantation owners increasingly relied on enslaved Africans. Millions of African people were forcibly transported across the Atlantic Ocean during the transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved people were forced to work under brutal conditions on sugar plantations. Sugarcane harvesting was physically exhausting, while sugar mills could be extremely dangerous. Workers often experienced violence, disease, poor living conditions, and extremely long working hours. Sugar therefore created great wealth for European merchants, plantation owners, and colonial governments, but much of this wealth depended on the exploitation and suffering of enslaved African people. The history of sugar cannot be fully understood without recognizing this human suffering. The sugar triangle and global trade sugar became an important part of the Atlantic trading system. European manufactured goods were transported to Africa. Enslaved Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas. Colonial products such as sugar, rum, and other goods were then shipped to European markets. This system is often associated with the broader triangular trade. Sugar plantations generated enormous profits. Ports, merchants, banks, shipping companies, and industries benefited from the sugar economy. As sugar supplies increased, its price gradually decreased. Sugar was no longer only a luxury for kings and nobles. More ordinary people in Europe began consuming it. The growth of sugar consumption during the 17th and 18th centuries, sugar consumption increased dramatically in Europe. One important reason was the growing popularity of tea, coffee, chocolate. These drinks were often bitter, and people added sugar to make them sweeter. Sugar was also increasingly used in cakes, biscuits, jams, candies, and desserts. In Britain, tea with sugar became an important part of everyday life. As demand increased, European colonial powers expanded sugar production. Sugar gradually changed from a luxury product into a common household food. The discovery and development of beet sugar for centuries Most commercial sugar came from sugarcane. However, scientists discovered that sugar beets also contain sugar. In the 18th century, the German chemist Andreas Sigismund Marggraf demonstrated that sugar could be extracted from beets. His student Franz Karl Achard later helped develop beet sugar production on a larger scale. During the Napoleonic Wars, European access to imported cane sugar was disrupted. This encouraged European countries to develop their own beet sugar industries. Sugar beet production became especially important in countries such as Germany, France, and Russia. The development of beet sugar reduced Europe's dependence on tropical sugarcane plantations. Sugar and the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution transformed sugar production. New machinery improved the crushing of sugarcane. Steam-powered equipment increased production efficiency. Factories developed better systems for boiling, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing sugar. Modern refining methods produced cleaner and whiter sugar. Railways and steamships also improved transportation. Sugar could be transported more quickly from farms and factories to international markets. Mass production made sugar increasingly affordable. By the 19th and 20th centuries, sugar had become a common food product for millions of people. Different types of sugar. Today, sugar is produced in many forms. White sugar is highly refined and commonly used in homes and food factories. Brown sugar contains molasses or has molasses added to refined sugar. Raw sugar is less refined than white sugar. Powdered sugar, also called icing sugar, is finely ground and often used in cakes and desserts. Molasses is a thick, dark liquid produced during sugar refining. Sugar can mainly come from two important crops: sugarcane and sugar beet. Sugarcane grows best in tropical and subtropical climates, while sugar beet can grow in cooler climates. Sugar in the modern world today. Sugar is a major global agricultural and industrial product. Countries including Brazil, India, China, Thailand, and others play important roles in sugar production. Modern sugar is used not only as a sweetener. Sugarcane and its byproducts can also be used to produce ethanol, animal feed, and industrial materials. Large food and beverage industries use sugar in soft drinks, sweets, bakery products, sauces, and processed foods. The global sugar industry provides employment to millions of farmers, factory workers, traders, and transportation workers. Sugar and human health. In modern society, sugar has also become an important health topic. Sugar provides energy because it contains carbohydrates. However, consuming large amounts of added sugar can contribute to health problems. Health experts often encourage people to limit excessive consumption of sugary foods and drinks. This represents an interesting change in sugar's history. In ancient and medieval times, sugar was rare and expensive. Today, sugar is widely available, and many societies are concerned about consuming too much of it. The historical importance of sugar has influenced world history in many ways. It encouraged international trade and European colonial expansion. It contributed to the growth of plantation economies and was deeply connected to the transatlantic slave trade. Sugar also influenced agriculture, science, industrial technology, and everyday eating habits. The desire for sugar helped create enormous wealth. but it also caused great human suffering through slavery and colonial exploitation. For this reason, sugar is more than simply a sweet food. Its history reflects major changes in global trade, political power, labor, technology, and human society. Conclusion: the history of sugar began with ancient people chewing sugarcane in Southeast Asia and the Pacific region. Knowledge of sugar production developed significantly in India before spreading to Persia, the Islamic world, and Europe. European colonial expansion transformed sugar into a major global commodity. Huge plantations were established in the Americas, and sugar production became tragically connected with the enslavement of millions of Africans. Later, beet sugar, industrial machinery, and modern factories made sugar cheaper and widely available. Today, sugar is found almost everywhere in the world. Its long history is a powerful story of discovery, agriculture, trade, empire, slavery, science, industry, and changing human lifestyles.